I'm coming at you live on tape from Sydney, Ohio. And today we're talking the Jericho Goldberg Feud from WCW. It really wasn't a feud. It was more Jericho running his mouth and Goldberg beating him up. But anyways, it got interesting. And it saw the introduction of Ralphus, who sadly passed away here about a year or two ago. But anyways, so Jericho wanted to face Goldberg when Goldberg was doing his undefeated streak and was WCW World Champion. Goldberg did not want to face Jericho because Jericho was arguably more popular than Goldberg. And Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan, who were both on the booking committee, also did not want Goldberg to face Jericho. So Jericho, WCW was kind of, I hate to say it was kind of like the Wild West, but you could pretty much do what you wanted to do and not tell people about it. So Jericho would come out and he'd call out Goldberg and he'd mock him. So eventually at Fall Brawl in '98, Terry Taylor told Jericho that he was going up against midget Goldberg to kind of continue this feud because it was making money, just he never actually fought Goldberg. So he fought the midget Goldberg, and then to continue the feud, Jericho said he needed some personal security to come out to the ring with, because Goldberg was always known for having security, knock on his dressing room door and then escort him to the ring. So Jericho thought there was a bunch of guys at the WCW power plant training to be wrestlers. Maybe he could use them, but then he had a brilliant idea, and he was watching the ring crew set up the ring, and he saw this fat, bald guy who had these two little weird teeth that Jericho describes as like candy corn coming out of his mouth. And he went up to this guy and asked this guy if he would like to come to the ring with him just for that night. And he ended up coming to the ring with him from then on. And the guy said in a high-pitched voice, "Sure, whatever." And he named this guy Ralphus. His real name was James Hinckley or something like that. James Hicks, something like that. I don't quite remember his real name, but he named him Ralphus after the midget character in the movie Bloodsucking Freaks, which Jericho said was from the 60s. It's actually from the 70s. It was on Tubi. I'm not sure where it's streaming now. I recommend the movie. It's kind of weird as fuck. So he gave Ralphus he cut off the bottom of the t-shirt so Ralphus' stomach was showing, and he wrote Jericho's personal security on it, or JPS. And then he found this other guy, because Ralphus was a truck driver and part set up the ring. And then he found this other guy who helped set up the ring, who looked kind of like Kenny Powers, and he put him in a shirt that said Jerichoholic Ninja. And he had these two guys help him to the ring. Well, Ralphus became very, very popular. Maybe it was because, I don't know, he wasn't good looking, but Jericho told Ralphus, since he was his security, to if people touched him, tell people don't touch him, don't get near him, stuff like that. But according to Jericho, Ralphus didn't have a mean, angry bone in his body, and Ralphus would just jovially, laughingly tell people don't touch him, don't get near him, stuff like that, and they wouldn't take Ralphus seriously. So then WCW wanted to use Ralph's in storylines. All this while, Jericho's still mocking Goldberg. So as Jericho's mocking Goldberg and Ralphus is coming to the ring with him, they're trying to use Ralphus in storylines and in the ring to as Jericho's valet, but Ralphus knows nothing about wrestling. And so instead of helping Jericho, when girls are interested in Ralphus, Ralphus is talking to the girls. Because Ralphus probably has never had a girl interested in him in his entire life. And so Ralphus isn't the most useful valet. But the Jericho Goldberg feud went on for a while. It ended with Jericho out cutting a promo on Goldberg, and Goldberg pretty much just coming out and beating up Chris Jericho. They didn't have a match. They didn't have some big stare down for a world title. I mean, Jericho was okay with just a short match. It didn't have to be for the world title, but they didn't have that. It was just a beatdown. And it's one of the ways WCW fumbled with Jericho that led to Jericho's decision to move to WWF or WWE, whatever you want to call it. I guess they're going back to WWF now. And he wanted to bring Ralphus with him to WWE or WWF, whatever you want to call it. But somehow it didn't work out. I couldn't find a reason why it didn't work out, but Jericho did say he wanted to bring him with him. So Ralphus went on to manage and help Norman Smiley in WCW because he was still a very popular character. Jericho, as we know, he went on to great success in WWF and WWE and is now in AEW. Ralphus would then later retire in 2000, probably going back to being a truck driver and setting up wrestling rings. Jericho and Goldberg would never really have a proper feud, though they would meet up again in WWE in 2003 when Goldberg came in. And Goldberg talked smack about Jericho backstage, and they would have a real life fight in which Jericho kicked Goldberg's ass. And Goldberg was forced in front of multiple people in wrestling court to admit that Jericho was a better wrestler than Goldberg. A feat I'm sure embarrassed the hell out of Goldberg because he thought he was hot stuff. So that's a little bit on Jericho Goldberg feud in WCW and Ralphus. God bless Ralphus, and I'm sure he's up in heaven right now with plenty of women surrounding him. I'm never quite sure what to talk about each week on these things. Give me ideas, people. So next week, I don't know what we're talking about. Tune in Wednesday for this week's movie, Black Friday with Bruce Campbell. No, there will not be any songs this week because my back feels like absolute shit and it hurts to play the keyboard.